Hello there, music lovers. Thank you so much for dropping by. I thought I would talk about Steely Dan here. They're on a co-headliner tour this summer with the Doobie Brothers. It's called the Summer of Living Dangerously Tour. Just kicked off about a month ago. And, there is a bridge between the Doobies and Steely Dan, and his name is Michael McDonald. You may recall that Michael McDonald was a member of the Doobie Brothers, a very, very prominent one, especially during the 80s, took them to new heights with his pop flair. And he also was a backing vocalist for Steely Dan. He was on, songs like Peg and Showbiz Kids, and there was a bunch of others. And he actually toured with Steely Dan back in 2006. And so they were able to kind of do it again, I guess you can say. And there was a really good bootleg of that tour that came out. It was from Charlotte, which is the same city I'm getting ready to talk about here. Charlotte 2006. I'm going to put a link to it down below. It is a ProShot in-house feed of Michael McDonald performing with Steely Dan. It's a great show, and I'll talk a little bit more about the bootlegs a little bit later on. But this was from May the 10th, so it's about a month ago, practically, in Charlotte, North Carolina. Steely Dan, they've been reeling in some real heavy stuff lately. The loss of Walter Becker, the longtime guitarist and songwriter. It's been him and Fagen. And Becker had been struggling for years with some health issues, and then finally he was diagnosed with esophageal cancer, and within 4 months he was gone. So it was a very quick thing. There's been some legal stuff going on between Fagen and Becker's estate about future royalties and all that. So it's a real shame. I mean, losing Becker, it was just really sad. Becker was, he was a funny guy. He was the one that connected with the audience, had a very dry, wry sense of humor, and I really do miss that. So Donald Fagen is going at it now with the rest of the band. They did not replace Becker. They're just going with John Harrington, who's been doing a great job on guitar for many, many years with them. They're doing more solo stuff from Fagen's albums, I noticed. They start the show with Green Flower Street, which is a song that really hasn't played a whole lot with Steely Dan. That's from the Nightfly. And then they do Hey 19, Black Friday, Asia. Always loved that song. That's an epic song. That is Steely Dan's longest song. So if you're a prog rock fan, you want to check out what's going on in Asia. Really good drum stuff going on. Nice, dynamics. Check it out. New Frontier after that. That's also a Donald Fagen solo song. That was a hit back in the 80s. Really cool song. Always did like that one. It's not in every show, though. I noticed that Steely Dan is kind of swapping songs in and out here. So you may hear I.G.Y, you may hear FM around this time. Also, Time Out of Mind from Gaucho. Kid Charlemagne is next. Kid Charlemagne's a cool song. One of the things about Steely Dan is they got these really groovy, kind of soulful, jazzy things going on in the music, but the lyrics could be about a drug dealer, and that's what this song's about. Always really did like that about Steely Dan. They kind of caught you with their really sweet melodies and everything, but the song could be about, going out with your cousin. Then they do Any Major Dude Will Tell You, which is a album cut from the Pretzel Logic album. That's a really cool song. It was the B-side of Riki Don't Lose That Number, which they will also do from time to time on this tour in place of this one. I like the Wilco cover of Any Major Dude. You might want to check that out if you've never heard it. They also do Green Earrings, Dirty Work. Dirty Work is from their first album, and it was originally sung by a guy named David Palmer. And Becker and Fagen never really cared for this song. As a matter of fact, they didn't play it live until I think 2006 on the tour with Michael McDonald, and they let the female backing vocalists sing the song. They did a really good job, and you can see that on the bootleg that I told you about from 2006. Babylon Sisters is after that, and in this spot they usually kind of swap this song in and out with Home at Last, Don't Take Me Alive, which is a great example of an album cut that's really, really good. Then they do Bodhisattva and Black Cow, Peg, My Old School, another song that's kind of got a great groove, but it's about a drug bust. And then they close out the show with Reelin in the Years, which is a, one of their classic, classic rock staples. They hated playing that song live, but they did bring it back in the 90s and they gave it a whole new groove, and it's really, really cool. So that's how they close out the show. So what do you think? I give it a thumbs up. It's got some key Steely Dan hits in there. They've got some deep cuts. There's some cool Donald Fagen solo stuff, because Steely Dan is one of these bands, that has a lot of great deep cuts. I remember, when I first became a fan, I loved the hits. And then a friend of mine who really got into them was like, man, you got to check out the albums. There's a lot of really good songs in there. So I did. And I found, yeah, man, there are a lot of really good deep cuts for Steely Dan. So they could do pretty much anything and they'll put on a good show. As a matter of fact, when they're done with the Doobie Brothers tour, they're going to be doing a string of theater shows, some of them at the Beacon in New York. They're going to be playing full albums. So if that's your thing, check out those shows. And this is a really good live band. The drummer, Keith Carlock, is amazing. He's a great guy to watch. Steely Dan is one of these bands that they never really liked themselves live. I mean, they didn't put out a live album until the 90s. But thankfully, there are a lot of great bootlegs of Steely Dan, a lot of good soundboards, and a lot of really killer in-house pro shot feeds, a lot of good video. And I'm going to put a link to as much as I can find for you on YouTube so that you can check it out down below. But, let me know. What do you think about Steely Dan? What do you think about this set list? Are you going to go see them? Let me know. Give this video a thumbs up. If you like it, be sure to subscribe, and I will talk to you later.